Welcome back to Cosmosis or Whatever. I'm Celia Marie 1243, your fairy tarot sister, your favorite psychic medium, your intuitive mentor, your spiritual bestie. Cosmosis or Whatever is a podcast that I started to help us take a look at the universe in a different way. Each episode manages to come right back to the fact that literally everything in the entire universe is connected, right? And we talk about ways that can help us live our best lives as we, realize all of these connections that the universe makes without us even realizing it. So thank you for rocking with me. Thank you for listening. So you think that you may be psychic, right? That's what you clicked on this episode for, and that is what I'm going to be talking about. Are you psychic? We know that I am psychic. I say that, right? In my intro, I always say, psychic medium. But we'll talk about what it means to be psychic, things that I've discovered on my psychic journey, and as a mentor, somebody who teaches people how to tap into their psychic abilities, what that's all about, right? So we will talk about what it means to be psychic. Okay, and we're back. So, what is psychic and are you psychic? So, psychic, I took the liberty of looking through some definitions of what psychic meant. And it's interesting because as I have developed on my psychic journey, I don't think I've ever, no, I have. I've looked at what psychic means, but I feel like it's all been very intuitive, right? Like I've more gotten downloads. So for those of you guys who are new, a download is basically when you receive a little piece of information, or maybe a big piece of information sometimes, that allows you to just understand things. It's kind of like getting a little puzzle piece that helps you tap into the cosmosis, right? Like the fact that everything's connected. So I did look up some dictionary definitions, and low-key they're kind of complicated, but let me just tell you what the dictionary is talking about, okay? I can't remember which one I got this from. But psychic by definition means, and this is as an adjective, right? And there is a difference between the adjective psychic and the noun. So that's important. But it says relating to or denoting faculties or phenomena that are apparently inexplicable by natural laws, especially involving telepathy or clairvoyance. Interesting. I'm clairvoyant. Hi. Okay. That was a little bit complicated, maybe, right? So, let's go to Merriam-Webster, right? So Merriam-Webster's definition of psychic is of or relating to the psyche. So, that took me down a wormhole. I'm like, okay, psyche. So psyche comes from the Greek term, which is soul or spirit, right? And Psyche is also a Greek goddess, I believe. And so those are the dictionary definitions. So for me, like I said earlier, there's a difference between the noun psychic and the adjective psychic. So you may have heard this before from me. I believe that everyone is psychic inherently, right? It is my belief, by working with the people that I work with, I have never met a client that has not tapped into their psychic abilities, that does not have the ability to do those things. Psychic as an adjective, everybody has that. I feel like psychic as a noun, how I say I'm a psychic, not everybody might consider themselves a psychic. The example that I always give people is the singing example. I look at psychism, or, being a psychic like any other skill, basically, right? Like being a singer. Everybody can sing. Do you do it well? Maybe not, okay? But that's the same thing with being psychic, right? Like everybody has psychic abilities. You might not trust them. You might not be, very good at it. You might not be meant to do it in a professional capacity, like how I am, right? My Monday through Friday job is psychism. I am working with people, tapping into their energy, things like that. And so the same way that, some people might just be shower psychics, like you might just sing in the shower. That doesn't mean you're going to be Mariah Carey, or, Beyonce out here in these streets singing, but you might just sing in front of your family and friends, or you might be a wedding singer, or you might not be confident in your ability to sing at all. So you just keep that all to yourself, right? That's the analogy I try to give people when it comes to that. But everybody has the ability to tap in. The more and more I have, worked with a lot of my clients and been on my own journey, I've also realized that the more and more you heal, the more and more you are able to tap into your psychic abilities. So what are these psychic abilities, right? There are a bunch of different ones, but I usually, especially for people who are just beginning, I like to start with the main four. So we have clairsentience, which is clear feeling, right? So that's governed by your heart chakra. Yeah, we get into the chakras, okay? That is governed by your heart chakra. That is the ability to sense things, to feel things. So obviously we can touch things, right? Like I can touch my phone in front of me. I can touch, the wall, whatever. But clairsentience is a little bit more about emotions or feelings that way. It can also be tactile. You can also get feelings. I talked a little bit about this in the last episode too, how to know that spirits are around. But you can get tingles or things like that, but you also pick up on what other people are feeling. Okay, so then we have clairaudience, which is governed by your throat chakra. So clairaudience is clear hearing, right? So we have our regular hearing, regular degula, if I'm talking, you're listening to this right now. But the psychic sense of clairaudience is being able to hear things that aren't necessarily being said verbally, right? Like, Celia, what do you mean? Like, hearing that voice in your head, have you or have you not ever had a conversation with yourself, quote unquote, in your head? Chances are that's you talking to your spirit guides or your higher self, your intuition. That is psychic. And when we get into like telepathy and stuff like that, you might also be able to hear other people's thoughts. I think a lot of us write off these things because we don't realize that they are psychic abilities and they are something that we can develop, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to let you know this is very much a possibility and it can very much change your life. I feel like I've had these psychic abilities for my whole entire life and I never really understood how they worked or how to use them. But as I've learned how to use them, baby, like it is so cool, honestly, to really learn that you have this connection with the universe and that you're able to tap into energy in these different ways. Is really cool. So that's clairaudience. A lot of times, people, if you've been getting ringing in your ears a lot, sometimes some people like get mad at me and they're like, well, I just have tinnitus, or like I have an ear infection. Like you can't say that. Like obviously I'm not a doctor. Okay. I always say that I'm not a doctor. I'm a fairy. Okay. So this is not medical advice. Keep that in mind. Right. But so, if you have tinnitus, go see a doctor or whatever. But if you feel like it might be something other than that, it could possibly be that your clairaudience is trying to bust through, right? It could be that your spirit guides, what happens is, and I have videos on this on YouTube, but what happens is you are not necessarily at the frequency of whatever guide, entity, spirit, soul is trying to speak to you. And so you need to raise your vibration in order to meet it. And so when your ears are ringing, or sometimes it can be like a pulsing or a buzzing or, just a lot of pressure, that will mean that you need to bring your vibration to the same place that the frequency of the soul that is talking to you. Does that make sense? So, which takes a little bit of time to learn for some people. I found it's almost a psychic ability to be able to do that quickly, because as soon as I started tuning in, as soon as I started reading tarot, is when all of my abilities kind of just started popping off, and I didn't even realize like what they were, how that worked. And you don't have to read tarot to be a psychic. I think a lot of people make that mistake too, thinking that you have to do that, but that's not necessarily true either. You don't need any tools to be a psychic. When it gets into like tools like tarot or oracle cards, or using dowsing rods and things like that, pendulums, like those are all ways of divination. right? Like bone readings, things like that. That is divination. That's a completely separate thing, but a lot of people, like, you tap into your psychic abilities during divination, but you don't have to necessarily divine, if that makes sense. That's funny. I saw the word divine as I said the word divine. And that is just a sync that lets me know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Kind of like a deja vu moment. But, so that's clairaudience. Moving on to clairvoyance, that's a very common one, right? So a lot of people, it's funny, I have my crystal ball in front of me, and I know a lot of people think of psychics as like, who's that one lady? People always compare me to her. Um, you know, them psychics who was like, I don't know if they was ripping people off or not. I was too young to know. But, they would say, people would say like, oh, they would say generic things, and, everybody would eat it up, and like, what is her name? I can't remember. There's that one like black psychic lady, and I don't know if she's real psychic. I haven't studied her or anything, but people always say that to me. And it's not necessarily that. A fortune teller and a psychic are two different things as far as I'm concerned, right? Especially when it comes to psychic, as me identifying myself as a psychic. Yes, there are ways to look into the energy of the future, but it's very important to note that the future is not set in stone. Okay? The future is constantly changing. There are so many different timelines that we could be on at any given time. And so what divination does, what psychic abilities do, is just give you the energy of what's happening right now. Okay, so yes, clairvoyance is clear seeing. So a lot of people ask me, one of the most common questions that I get is like, Celia, how do I open up my third eye? First off, there are levels to that. If you are having dreams, you're dreaming, right? You had a dream at least once in your life. If you have a dream, you are clairvoyant. Ta-da! Like, your dreams come from your third eye, your pineal gland. So that's a fun fact, right? And people get so like flabbergasted, but like I said, there are levels to it. So when it comes to opening up our third eye or completely engaging that chakra, it's really all about understanding the world, or understanding like the universe, the cosmos. That's really what actually opening your third eye is all about. And like I said, there are different levels. So clairvoyance can also manifest as seeing things, as visions, not even necessarily dreams, but like daydreams. That's one of my strongest abilities. I find that a lot of creative people are very clairvoyant. I'm a very creative person. I'm an artist, and a lot of times spirit will speak to us through symbolism, right? So for example, one of the symbols that I will see, and it's different for everybody, right? It's a very individual thing. It's very much your connection based on what your beliefs and your perceptions are. But there's also like this universal kind of thing that happens as well, which is really cool. And I never miss. If y'all have gotten a reading from me, if you've seen me read either on live or whatever, like, y'all know I don't miss. If I'm picking up on your energy, I'm not gonna miss. Never have. But for example, what are some of the things that I get? So sometimes I'll see a donut. And a donut for me has become a symbol of somebody who is going through a karmic cycle, right? Because a donut is, it's round, it's circular, it goes in a circle. Like that is just something that has been added to my psychic library. Or another thing that I will see in my visions when I'm reading for people is corn. I will see corn on the cob, and then I will see it start to pop like popcorn. And that is always a message for me that people are ascending, or people are going through an awakening. And when the ear of corn starts to like all the kernels pop, that means it's like a collective awakening. So do you see how different ways that the different like symbols pop up can mean different things. And I've been wanting to make like some content on that in general too, because I think my my job as a graphic designer, that's what I went to school for. I think that has really helped me understand, because we go through like symbols and things and what those mean, and how just the slightest change of a symbol can change the meaning of something, right? Like an ear of corn, okay, that can mean one thing, but like, okay, if I put the ear of corn underwater, now what does that mean? Okay, or if the ear of corn is on fire, what does that mean? If the ear of corn is yellow versus, multicolored, that could mean something different. So it's all about that. So for those of you guys who've been getting visions and dreams, it's the same thing with dreams, right? I do dream interpretation sessions. So if you guys need help with that, let me know. You can book me on my website for that. It's one of my services. But what I tell people when I'm just giving general advice about dreams is that you just need to pay attention to the details, because your dreams are just a manifestation of your subconscious, right? And that's really what we're doing as psychics. As people who are tapping into their psychic abilities, we are tapping into the energy part of things, not necessarily the physical manifestation, the 3D, right? The things that we can touch, but it's more the things that we can sense outside of that. Okay, so that's clairvoyance. And then we also have claircognizance, which is governed by your crown chakra, which is at the top of your head. And claircognizance is probably the hardest one. I always say that. It's probably just because it's the hardest one for me, honestly. It might not be the hardest one for other people. But really, claircognizance, like, you know how sometimes you just know things? Like randomly, you'll just know. Like you meet somebody and all of a sudden you'll know like exactly where they're from. Or they'll say something and like you've never talked to this person about this thing before at all, but you just know what they're saying is true. Or maybe sometimes you'll know what they're saying is a lie. That is claircognizance, where it just kind of is divine inspiration. It comes out of seemingly nowhere, but it's really just you pulling energy from like the space-time continuum. That was actually a claircognizance. That was like a channeled message. And a lot of us are speaking from our claircognizance when we're tuned in, right? Without even realizing it. And I think I've been doing that a long time. Well, tapping into all of these abilities for a long time. And you probably have too. So those are important things to know. What else do we need to know about being psychic? Well, for one, those are just like 4 main abilities. There's also other things like clairsalience, which is clear smelling, clairgustance, which is clear tasting, and I want to make YouTube videos about that, so stay tuned for those things. There's also like clairtangence, which I also have. All of these abilities I've talked about, I have all of them, and that's how I am able to coach people through how to use these in your everyday life. It does take practice, just like singing, right? Some people are going to just, you are a natural. You are meant to sing on a stage in front of a lot of people. Some people are only meant to be, like low-key local wedding singers. Or maybe you're just meant to sing in the shower. Or maybe you're just meant to sing, to yourself or to your kids or whatever, right? It's the same thing with psychic stuff. But anybody can tap into it if you're willing to do the work, because I will say it's not always easy. And at the root of psychic work, I have noticed, is healing, because there's a lot of subconscious junk that is blocking us from being able to tap into our abilities. Like, for example, not trusting ourselves. That's one of the biggest things that I encounter in my clients, is not being able to trust themselves. Or when it comes to like connecting to spirit guides and stuff like that, you will get messages, but you don't even believe that they're messages. So how are you going to, apply that to your life if you don't even believe it? And that comes from trauma, right? Healthy dose of skepticism, okay, but for a lot of people, it goes beyond that. Or, maybe there might be an issue with, feeling like you're weird, or feeling like tapping into these types of gifts, whether it be with tools or not, is evil. I can't tell you how many people I work with who have had a very religious upbringing, and it's very difficult for them to tap in. But once we break down that kind of like religious trauma and we kind of get rid of the notion that these things are evil and they're not meant to happen, then we make a lot of breakthroughs in their psychic abilities, and they're able to realize that they've been doing this the whole time and there's nothing really evil about it at all. And don't even get me started about how don't even get me started on how I feel like we have been made to think that these things are evil for a reason, right? Because there's a lot of power in using these abilities. And, I don't feel like everybody's meant to use these abilities in their lifetime. I think that there is a responsibility that also comes with it, especially if you're going to be doing it professionally, right? It's a lot of pressure to give people messages and things like that. Also really important to think about ethics and stuff like that. If you're not a trained, psychic or whatever, it might not be the best for you to just go around giving messages if you don't know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Or it's not that you don't know what you're talking about. I feel like if it's just you're not trained in how to discern a message, how to deliver a message, things like that. And those things come with training, those things come with time. And so if you guys are wanting to tap into your psychic abilities, this is probably your sign, right? If you found yourself here, and like I said, there are levels to things, right? So it's not just a clear cut, there's not a clear cut way to be a psychic. Different people have different abilities. You might hear another psychic explain things completely differently than how I just did. It doesn't mean they're wrong or I'm wrong. A lot of it is a lot more subjective. It's a lot more about your feelings versus, facts. And I think that a lot of people, but in a way, like the feelings are facts. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what I'm learning more and more. And that's what I'm teaching people as I teach them how to tap into their psychic abilities and their intuition. So I will leave that episode here. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys who are still struggling to understand what a psychic is, or if you have psychic abilities. Hopefully that helps you. If you need more help, you guys know where to find all my content. It's in my link tree. I have a YouTube channel, I have this podcast, I have a TikTok and also an Instagram. There are like nuggets all over talking about all of these different things, and don't be scared to like scroll through and just, browse, especially if you feel called, because one thing about, energy, it never like dies, right? And I truly believe in divine timing. So whatever messages you need, maybe answers to things that you need, like they'll be there. You just have to put yourself in the position to receive, right? So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you guys in the next one.